on this episode of the show. We are still into A24 month, A24 Pro, and we're doing my pick of the month, which is Sean Baker's The Florida Project, which came out in 2017. This is a movie that Letterboxd describes as being the story of a precocious 6-year-old and her ragtag group of friends whose summer break is filled with childhood wonder, possibility, and a sense of adventure, while the adults around them struggle with hard times. So I decided to choose this movie. I hadn't seen it before, but I remember hearing a lot of strong reactions about it when that 2017 Oscar season started to heat up. And so just from what I heard about it, knowing it's about this juxtaposition between poverty in the backdrop of Walt Disney World, which is, you know, famously the happiest place on earth, it made me really interested to see what it was all about. So that's why I picked it. Have you guys seen it before?
I had not.
Nope.
Did you know anything about it? Did this pick up? Were you ever interested?
Only what you described to me when you announced that this was going to be your pick this year.
Good.
I didn't really know anything about it. I knew that it was playing at our local indie theater, Circle Cinema, and that Willem Dafoe was nominated for an Oscar. Thus, I was like, oh, I should probably see it. And then when it didn't win anything, I went, okay, well, I'm less interested because there are other things that I want to see.
Yeah, this was definitely a Circle Cinema movie, one of those 200 or so theaters that David mentioned that this played in.
Yeah.
We love them. Yeah. Check them out, circlecinema.org.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, well then let me just dive into my first thoughts, and then we'll do the usual. We'll go around. So just right off the bat, I gotta say, I felt like the children in this movie really stole the show. I think all of them, this was their first time on film. They were really young. Sometimes you could tell that, but most of the time I felt like it came across as pretty genuine. They were pretty genuine kids. I liked watching them interact, and I was curious if any of it was like improv or if they were all given a script, because sometimes I felt like they were genuinely playing with each other. So that was fun to see. The story has got that kind of slice of life type of storytelling, which I find either pulls people in or sucks them out. Just it depends usually. And I kind of found myself most engaged when we were following the kids. I thought they were the most interesting part of the story, with the exception of Willem Dafoe as Bobby. I did like watching Bobby a lot because he was maybe the only adult who was worth a damn, who was like a good person in his heart. And Willem Dafoe was really refreshing in that. We'll talk about him in more depth later, but I can't remember the last time I watched a movie with Willem Dafoe where he didn't scare me. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's so scary.
Yeah.
And so he was just really warm in this, so I like that. But overall, this movie, like, it made me smile and it broke my heart at the same time. So, I don't know. It was an experience. Those are my thoughts.
Garrett, what did you think?
I think that everybody on screen gave a really good performance and they were really captivating for what they were doing. I do agree, Josh, that I think that, you know, for kids that young, if you want to get a good performance, I think you kind of let them curb your enthusiasm, if you will. It's like, hey, I need you to get from here to there, and I don't really care what you do in between, but I need you to get from here to there, kids. And then they just kind of went and played, and that's the way that it felt. You know, I feel like that's probably the more natural route that they took. It was really interesting to see Willem Dafoe surround himself with all of these newbies, and it kind of felt like, you know, Willem Dafoe likes to do all these indie movies anyway, and it felt like he kind of knew somebody and was like, hey, I'll help you out and do this movie, just because he seemed so out of place in what was happening. And Josh, I think the thing that I didn't necessarily get from this movie, and you talk about it being a slice of life, and A24 I feel like really is good at that. They are really good at just giving you a look at a life of something, right? And I think that what they were trying to deliver didn't get the overall message. I think that they delivered really good on looking at the poor, but I don't think that if I knew this movie was supposed to be the juxtaposition of like being like they referenced Disney World and Disney and all of that being around, but they didn't do a good job, in my opinion, of giving me the other side that's just so close. I didn't get all of the, you have to see the excess in order to understand better the poor that is there. And I just don't think they delivered on that part. So for me, it never really got the message across. I think everybody really delivered what they were given, but I just don't think that the whole piece landed with me.
David, next.
Boys, we talked about it the other week. Got my cinephile card back out here. I know a lot of people like this movie. This was the most boring thing I've ever watched. This was excruciatingly boring. And I know. It was too long at 10 minutes. There was nothing going on at all. And Josh, I'm glad you mentioned it, because you said the slice of the life thing might suck you out, and it did. It sucked me right out of it. And Garrett, you also hit on another factor. I thought that I read about what the movie's supposed to be about. I read an interview with Sean Baker where he talked about it, and I wish that the things he talked about in that interview with the Hollywood Reporter came through for me in the film itself. I think this would have been better as like a documentary, because then you could really like do something with people whose lives this actually is. Instead, it just felt like, it's hard to even say dramatizing, because like so little character is actually here that like it's just kind of taking a crappy situation and just sort of like putting it on screen. And I don't know, like Josh, you said that the kids stole the show. I would have loved for someone to steal the show in this. I would have loved for there to have been that for me. I did think Willem Dafoe was good. It was interesting to see Willem Dafoe play like a normal person as opposed to playing what Willem Dafoe always plays, which is kind of like really crazy, eccentric people. And I know, we're retreading territory here, because it sounds like I have no empathy. I have a lot of empathy for the little girl, specifically for what's her name, Monet?
Mooney.
I have tremendous sympathy for her, because like she didn't deserve this. Neither does little Scooty or that other kid. But I also didn't feel that bad for them at sometimes, because they literally spit on a woman's car to open the movie and then spit on a girl, and then they act like it's their problem.
You can't feel bad for 6-year-old children?
No, not when they spit on other kids and then act like it was that little girl's fault.
I didn't bring the empathy back into question.
Look, I feel bad for them at times. I don't feel bad for them at other times, because they're kind of bad kids. So yeah, I know. There's moments here and there that I appreciated, and we can get into those as we go. But I know, and I'm in not even just the minority. Like it's probably like 4 people in the world that don't like this movie, and I'm just sadly one of them. And I apologize, because I know that a lot of people like it. I wish I saw what they say they like about it. I don't know. I look forward to talking to you guys about it, because if there's any 2 people on this planet that can make me feel better about a movie, it's Garrett and Josh.
Well, I certainly see and can hold some space for some of the critiques that Garrett gave. I have very little room for David's. I think, Garrett, you talked about you feeling like you didn't really completely get the whole why is everyone living around Disney World poor? And I can see that for sure. There could have been more attempt at kind of exposing that. Really, the most blatant time that I can really think of when that happens is when the couple on their honeymoon arrive at the hotel and it's the wrong one, and they're so offended by it. Well, his wife is so offended by it. That's really the best look we get at people being like, oh God, I don't want to be here. Otherwise, we just kind of see the people in this community. So yeah, I get that. I might just have to, I don't know. I don't even know how to combat your points, David.
Well, you just tell us what you like, Josh.
I agree
think
with
that would
Garrett on
help.
that
I
point,
think
so-
yeah. I think you should tell us what you liked and what really stood out and why you got sucked into this part. And I think that will help drive the conversation between you and David.
Well,
and
so just on the surface, and we joke about the empathy thing. We mentioned it, but I really do like not blame kids of that age for kind of their behavior when they are not parented. They're like actually raising themselves. So yeah, they're really annoying and they're shitty kids, but I'm not gonna like
That's at the core
think
of it,
poorly
yeah,
of them for
definitely.
that.
No,
My
and I don't
quote
think
for
poorly
this-
of them, but I would be annoyed by them if they were in my
Yes.
in my space. But
my quote
Yeah,
was,
that's the real
it's not
problem.
their fault.
No.
But these kids are kind of assholes.
sometimes
I think that's what I said as I was watching this movie. But it's not their fault. I don't blame them at all.
It's
No,
not.
they're
I mean,
kids.
this movie starts out with Dickie calling this lady or telling her to go home, you ratchet bitch, and like that's funny to me when a 6-year-old says that. Obviously, so that's
is.
my
Yes,
reaction.
I agree.
First of all,
Yes.
But yeah, it's crappy, and it's like you figure out really early on that like the kids run the neighborhood. They run the hotels, both of them, the Futureland and the Magic Castle. So I liked seeing that in the beginning, just seeing them run around and play and get to know each other, and they meet this new friend Jancy, and they get to know her, and they bring her along, and then they show her the town, and then I'm like, oh, the kids don't run the neighborhood, they like run Kissimmee, Florida. Like, oh, crap, this is their city. They're getting ice cream for free, they're doing whatever they want, and that's like both sad to watch and liberating, and that's what I'm enjoying out of it, is seeing these kids have fun, not knowing how dire their situation really is. Like, it's bad, but they're just like living it up and having a good time as best they can. There's a lot of funny lines in this movie from the kids. I mean, I already said go home you ratchet bitch, that was funny. Mooney had a really funny like throwaway line that I had to back up because she said watch out for the water because I went to the hospital one time. She's a very funny child, and I found her to actually be a pretty deep character for a child. Like, I thought we got a lot of character out of her, and I credit the actor Brooklyn Prince as being just like a real child. Didn't seem like she was acting all the time.
No.
But she had a few great lines. In that scene where we see the honeymoon couple, she's talking about that lady's about to cry. I can always tell when adults are about to cry, and that is like a really sad wise beyond your age kind of child moment. That's like a thing that only kids who have to raise themselves can do at 6 years old, is be self-aware enough of an adult to tell when they're gonna cry. That's sad. That's not cool. And then there's another scene where she's with Jancy and she says, do you know why this is my favorite tree? Because it tipped over and it's still growing. And that line really hit me too, as like,
I don't even remember that line. Yeah, it's good.
you weren't paying attention.
I was paying attention, unfortunately, so hard and like looking for anything.
Yeah.
No, no, it's a good line.
I believe she was sitting on the tree with Jancy, I think, and they may have been eating ice cream again or
They were
something.
eating jelly sandwiches at that
Jelly
point. I think.
sandwiches, and yeah, she says I like this tree because it tipped over and it continues to grow, and that's just kind of the base idea of this story, is that like these people are tipped over on their side, but they're still going anyway. So I don't know. That I've talked a lot about things I liked, so I don't want to take the whole floor. I have more things, but we can split it up.
No, I mean,
David, your counter arguments.
Oh, I think that the little girl did as best as you can expect. It's if this is her first time and it's the other kid's first time, the whole thing is shot very guerrilla style at times, where like it doesn't feel like they said here's your lines and go do it. I think Gary, you spoke to that where you said they have like an A and B and they can get there however they need to. It felt very minimalist in terms of written dialogue, and you have an occasional line that's supposed to be said, but otherwise the kids can just go blah, 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 in the middle if they want to, or just say whatever. And so it was that stuff was pretty interesting at times, but also there was just a lot of it was just a lot. These kids do a lot of running. It kind of took me back to when I was a kid and we didn't have like video games and we didn't have
no rules.
Yeah, I mean, and
it felt like no rules.
You go out until the lights come on, Like we grew up in that. At least I did. I grew up in that lifestyle where you just go play and do everything during the summer. Parents didn't really watch you that closely, or if they did, they might have some kind of rules. Stay in this area, stay where we can, stay where we can find you, that type of stuff. But yeah. I mean, and she was like you said, Josh, I think you called her a fully realized child. She was sweet at times, but she was also super obnoxious at times. She seemed like she's kind of mean at times, but and she's kids are manipulative. She was like, "Hey, Jancy, come help us clean the car that we ruined." It's so much fun. She was a little Tom Sawyer on that. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to refute. I'm not going to sit here and be like, the kid was terrible.
Well, we all agree the kid was terrible, so. Yeah.
The kids were little jerks sometimes, but what else can you expect with their parentage?
Yep.
I appreciated the most of this movie, the reality of it. I think that it felt real. And David, you had mentioned it would have landed more as a documentary. And I do agree with that because I do think that, again, with them being first-time actors for the most part, unknown people, and they are just kind of giving you a life sense. And then you have Willem Dafoe over here who is like, what? Is he? Everything else feels so real. And then there's Willem Dafoe, right? Mm-hmm. And that is what truly sucked me out. As good as his performance was, it just didn't feel like it meshed with me. But I really liked that again, whether or not the story was for me, I think that what they delivered gave me that realness. I think the woman who played Haley was I think she was really good in delivering that character. I didn't like that character, but you weren't supposed to like that character. And seeing her, go through her entire arc, if you will, I guess it's more like a U she doesn't really go, she doesn't really get above anything. She kind of just goes worse. But I thought that she really gave a good performance. Made me not like her, made me kind of angry, made me feel icky. You could see her being protective at times, but also really just upset with the system and that victim of the system who also continues to make herself the victim of that system. It's never her fault. There is a lot of responsibility there that she is owning up to. It's always somebody else's fault. And, you see how her behavior acts, with the kids. These kids are not good kids. They're just kind of rebellious and rambunctious, but, they're also learning, seeing things from their parents. And I think that, to me, is interesting storytelling. Again, that may not have been something that was able to connect with everybody, but I do think that there is some realness injected from the director, and I think that he had a specific memory. That's what this movie makes me feel like. It's like a memory that meant something to someone, and they wanted to put that onto a film. And if it connects with you, then you have a similar kind of past or experience or some kind of connection to it that other people may or may not. And that's what makes you think about this movie.
I agree. I only want to say a little bit about that as well. Mooney's mother, I didn't like her. And like you said, Garrett, she makes a lot of wrong decisions, and she makes a lot of stuff that, I'm sure some people would tell me that, you shouldn't say that any style of parenting is bad, but she doesn't take any responsibility. When someone comes and tells her that her kids have done something wrong or that she's done something wrong, she immediately deflects, or she makes light of it, or she makes a no big deal or whatever. And I'm like, no, your kids did something wrong. Why don't you get onto them? And I don't mean she has to spank them or do anything, but she was like, okay, go clean up the mess you made. So much is So I found that, and the character, makes some really poor choices. And Josh, I'll let you speak to that more because I think you probably have uh, a more eloquent way to say it. She makes some poor choices, and it has probably the repercussions that it should have, as awful as they are. But even in her, spoiler alert, even in the moments where she's her daughter is being taken from her by Child Protective Services, her focus, even if you listen to her, is not necessarily on her daughter. It's, you're asking me to take away my child. It's very like, she's not saying like you're asking her to leave her mother or anything like that would be sort of focused on her kid. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes she's protective of her kid, but I feel like she also, like, her kid is like secondary in terms of the things she cares most about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, what you said. Who's to tell people how to parent on one level? But then you see these kind of situations and you're like, well, look, I'm Josh. I'm not a parent at all, and I can tell that that's not. And I feel comfortable saying that. I don't think I need to be a parent even to say, hey, that is probably not the way to do it. And yeah, Haley is just a not great person, but it's so hard to watch because I do feel that she loves Mooney, and I feel like she makes every single wrong decision to show it. She's not very good at keeping an eye on them. She's not good at discipline. She's not keeping her safe from, the job she's chosen. She's she's hard to watch, and
Well,
to get into territory that comes down later down the road. If you haven't seen this film, we're going to talk about it anyway. The I don't remember what they're called, but the Florida equivalent of Child Protective Services comes in and seeks to remove Mooney from the situation. And that's where I'm like, that's kind of where, so like, slice of life is happening, right? That's the overall gist of this film. There's not a solid plot, but there is a gradual building tension as we learn more and more about these kids' real lives, up to this climactic moment when Mooney is taken away and everything falls apart. So that's where I find structure.
yeah, and it was it was around about an hour 20, and I think we get sort of some progression on that level. I remember they have this frequent run of Mooney taking baths and having the radio cranked up real loud, and you see that about 4, maybe 5 times, and then on the 5th time it becomes obvious what's actually happening while she's taking baths. And I was like, oh man, okay, here we go. But then it's a little bit of a beat before we actually get to the consequences of all that. Josh, and this might sound harsh, but at the end of the day, too, you're talking about the choices she makes. The one choice that she refuses to make is to make any change in her life that might better. And look, there's so many things you can do, but like she goes to somebody, probably a temp agency or something like that, to try to get work, and they're like, I've been to 10 places and they won't hire me. And it's like, I don't know. Well, are you being nice to them, or the second they give you any sort of criticism or they tell you to do anything, are you yelling F you? Because that's the vibe I get. But anyway, yeah, like there are things that could probably be done to help their situation, but she doesn't want to do that because she probably just wants to stay home and smoke weed. And that's probably the wrong way to go, but that's what they do in the movie. So,
you see, I think that's where you have to, I think there's a lot of depth in the character of Haley, because you don't know her backstory, really. You kind of just dive into her life and their lives, and you just go forward, and there is no looking back, right? So who knows how she has became, like, how she came to have Mooney. That's what I'm trying to say. She looks like she is relatively young, probably was very young when she had Mooney is 6. That is a big difference. And so she was probably very young when she had this, probably wasn't expecting it. And so there is a level of like maybe selfishness or resentment, but you see that in how she acts and the choices that she makes, and some of the things that she does. It's very about her, but she also is doing what she can in the situation that she's in to survive. And that, to me, again, goes back to that reality. There are people like that in this world. Josh, where you and I used to be roommates, and we lived next to a hotel that had a lot of people who looked like they were just kind of living there, in those unfortunate, really sad life situations. And who knows how people get in those situations. But Haley is trying to do what she can for her kid and for her to live in the situation that they have. She's not making good decisions. But that's why I think that character has a lot of depth, and you can really talk into it and really look at it from a lot of different perspectives, because there is that level of selfishness there throughout the entire thing, that she's just kind of looking at herself. But what kind of plays into this? Who knows?
Clearly,
that's what I think is interesting about this, is that you can paint whatever kind of picture you want with these people because you don't know a lot about them.
Yeah, and clearly, one thing we can draw is she doesn't really have a support system. Maybe
except for Bobby and the whole community of the hotel. That is also an interesting element of the story. Is everyone treats everyone like crap, but they are still a community, and they do come together and work together. And that is an interesting dynamic of this movie as well.
I think that they do make that kind of element clear. Is like anybody who potentially could give her support, she doesn't treat very well. Because Bobby tries. Bobby's a very nice, is as seemingly to me about as patient as he can be. This is a good way to transition into Willem Dafoe's performance, but it's I found Bobby to be kind of like a highlight every time he came on, because at the same time you have all this other story going on. He seemed like a good guy. He seemed like a guy trying to do his job. He didn't seem like one of those. We do see management come in at some point, but he seems like he's just trying to keep this place going for all these people who live here, as opposed to like a landlord trying to take advantage of people and stuff like that. He seems like every scene that had Willem Dafoe in it, I was like, oh, I'm glad Willem Dafoe's here, because like he's giving this the level of, I don't know, he's just giving it a sincerity that you get from an actor who's really, really skilled at that, or who's like a veteran actor. So, what did you guys think? How did you? We've talked a little bit already before, but what did you think of Willem Dafoe in this?
Yeah, I loved Willem. Like I said earlier, I thought he was really warm in this, and that was kind of a role I don't expect from him, that I don't see often from him. The Bobby character, he tries so hard to run his motel the right way, but can't help but keep a soft spot for the kids. He shows that he really cares about them, probably the most of any adult in the film. And I think he likes that they're there. I think he likes that he can keep an eye on them. And I got the vibe that he wouldn't actually even kick them out if it really came down to it. Because how many times does he threaten in this movie to kick them out? And he doesn't. And it's because he loves those kids. And I like that. We see that a lot, but we see it crystal clear in this moment that I wanted to highlight, where it's pretty heavily implied that a predator of sorts is approaching the kids, and Bobby susses him out immediately and is like, "Get the F out of here, man." Physically,
that was a great scene.
Removes him from the hotel. What?
Yeah, that was a great scene.
It was a great scene.
He leads him over to the soda. He goes, "What are you doing here?" "Who's looking for a soda?" He goes, "A soda, all right, come this way." Right? He takes him
at a
over
motel
there.
off
Then
the
he
highway
slaps
in the middle of nowhere.
He gives him the soda. He makes him drink it. Then he slaps it out of his hand right as he starts drinking it. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a really good way to de-escalate and then escalate the situation. And I wish more people would take that, vibe. He walked him away. He was like, "Oh, you got a soda? Yeah, let's. Okay, yeah. We're just trying to move the situation." And then boom, knock it out of his hand. Get out. Yeah, don't make Willem angry. You wouldn't like him when he's angry.
No, if anything, he seems like a very sweet guy. But Willem Dafoe is one of the scariest people on the planet when he wants to be.
Exactly. He in another really funny scene that I had to write down, he even tries to keep these kids away from seeing this old lady's tickle bitties as they were. She's like out on the outside the pool sunbathing. They're out, and the kids are over there chanting "Bobby boobies, Bobby boobies," and I'm dying because I'm
He's like,
6 years
"Please."
old in my head.
He's like,
That's
you
hilarious.
gotta cover up.
Yes, he's like, there's kids over there. Come on.
And she's like, what kids? And he's like, those kids, the ones that are yelling at us. She's like an old showgirl or something, maybe.
She
Who knows?
is.
Yeah,
Oh my
for
god!
sure.
And she's like, he touched me. I'm calling the police.
I'm calling police. There's
laughed at
that
that.
scene. I also want to point out Bobby shooing away cranes. This is, for whatever reason, the whole movie could have been Willem Dafoe shooing cranes, and I think I would have really enjoyed it because he's like, fellas, and the camera moves over and it's cranes, and he's like, come on, we got cars coming. And he's just shooing them away. I don't know why. That's so dumb, but that to me was like one of my favorite little scenes because it felt like the cranes were probably just actually there, and they were like, we need to get rid of these cranes, but let's just have Willem do it in character.
Yeah. All right, but before we move here into our final thoughts, I do want to talk about the final scene in this because it's really interesting. First of all, like we mentioned earlier, there's some handheld camera techniques in this movie that is kind of interesting, but it really kicks into high gear in the final scene. Mooney's run away from the motel. She runs to future land to get Jancy to tell her goodbye or something. We don't actually get to hear what Mooney wants to say, but Jancy makes this last second call to just run off with her, and then we go into like their level handheld chase and watch these two girls run all the way into Disney World, which must be some sort of dream sequence of sorts because that just couldn't happen. But
For multiple reasons.
yeah, for a lot of reasons, these two
One, it's
girls
like I looked it up, it'd be like a 4-mile run.
I meant to do that too. Like, it's established that it's not like next door to Walt Disney World. Like, it's quite a walk. And then to get through security and all that, they just run right through it. But
Run right there.
it really got me. Like, something about it, just escaping into Disney World, knowing that they might not ever get to go for real. There was some real. I shed some real tears, and I'm not exaggerating. Even though David hated this movie, I'm not just trying to be the complete opposite. I did actually find that emotional.
I do want to talk about that too. So they shot that. This is what's interesting to me is that they shot that really girls out. One, you not allowed to shoot like a film in Disney World, especially without permission. And Disney's not really big on giving permission. Because to do that, they'd have to shut down a whole area of the park for you to shoot, and they're just like, that's just a big loss for them in terms of how many churros are they not going to sell because they shut down Tomorrowland or whatever. So like, it's just not likely unless they do a few shows in the 90s got to shoot there, like but
it's their own shows. I think that's the point.
It's their own shows.
This is a totally different company.
Yeah. They would usually for that they would film before the parks even opened so that they could shoot them without any issues. So anyway, it's all shot from what I read on an iPhone 6, and that's why the quality obviously drops a little bit, but it has, I think that adds to the effect of it being kind of a dreamy sequence.
Yeah.
Sean Baker said, with all of the real drama that's going on, this is me saying to the audience, if you want a happy ending, you're going to have to go to that the headspace of a kid, because that's the only way to achieve it, which is kind of a depressing thing to say. But also, yeah, like that's their perfect way that this ends, because it's not going to end that way, unfortunately, in the real world. She's going to go to this other family eventually, which hopefully they can find them. Who knows what actually happened? Who knows if they showed up and they were able to pick her up? But yeah, it's a really interesting way to end it. I was reading that they had Sean Baker, the cinematographer, the kids' acting coach, and then obviously their parents were all there at Disney to kind of like discreetly film this. I tried to look up if like there was any kind of like if Disney like fined them or anything like that, but it doesn't look like they did.
Yeah, that would have
They
been.
didn't get
See,
caught.
I didn't care for the ending, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that's because, again, that's where it goes back to the lack of message. At no point in time did I ever gather from any of these kids that they would be better off at Disneyland or Disney World. That was not a dream for them. It was not anything that they were like, there was no seed planted for me that they understood that the happiest place on earth was just around the corner. They never talked about it. They never were in their little escape adventures. They never pretended to play at Disney. If they had even done things like that, I think that would have made me connect more with the kids, because then I would have known that they knew how close that they were, that, you know, they were making the best with what they had and the reality that was around them, but that escapism was there, and that they believed that Disney, you know, if they could just get to Disney, then everything would be a little bit better, you know, and that never happened. And so for them to just run off to Disney, dream sequence or not, I was like, again, had I not known what the movie's trying to do, I would have been like, what the hell is this movie trying to do?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it would be.
So it just, it was just because they didn't message it right for me. And there was, yes, I understand that they are living in poor around a big, rich place, but like they didn't do enough to make that a part of the story. It was a little too subtle. I usually am upset when things are like slapping me in the face with the message, but this one was too subtle where the message just seemed not quite well thought out.
I'm going to go back to this. I think it's Hollywood Reporter here that I have pulled up. Yeah, the Hollywood Reporter did an interview with Sean Baker back then, and so this is what he said. And I wish that I felt this when the movie was happening. He said, we've been watching Mooney and her imagination and wonderment. I don't remember much imagination or wonderment. But he said throughout the entire film, to make the best of her situation, she can't go to the animal kingdom. So she goes on safari behind the motel and looks at cows. She goes to the abandoned condos because she can't go to the haunted mansion. If at any point they had mentioned that that's what they were trying to replicate to themselves, I think it would, like you said, Garrett, have stood out more as, oh, okay. This is the effect of living so close to this thing you hear everybody talk about, but you can't actually go to. I think that probably would have helped some too. But I don't know. Clearly, for a lot of people, that they didn't need that as much, because I know that it's got a super high Rotten Tomatoes, and I know that like you said, Josh, it had some awardsy buzz. I don't think it got nominated for anything outside of Willem Dafoe's nomination, though, right?
Not at the Oscars, but there were several other. Whatever. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into final thoughts then, because this has already run a bit longer than we intended to.
I thought so.
I will just say I found this movie to be really touching. The kids cracked me up at first, but then the veil gets slowly lifted over the course of the film, and we get a good look at how dire their situation is. At least I felt so. I think children are always more observant than we expect them to be, and we see that these kids are not completely oblivious to their situation. They have just been forced to survive. That's what I got out of it. It was impactful to me, so I'm giving it 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Oh, 4 out of 5. Okay.
Nice.
I thought it was 4 fifths.
I'll go next because I feel like I'll be a good bridge between you two.
Probably.
I think that there are really good performances in this movie. I think that everybody is really well delivered in what they're given. Willem Dafoe is wonderful and sweet. Haley is infuriating and maddening. And all of the kids are really enchanting just being kids. And so there's that level of realism that this movie gets. But knowing the overarching theme, and it just didn't land with me at all. I was kind of just watching along and interested in moments, dipped out in moments. The bigger piece just didn't quite get there. And so for me, it's a 3 stars.
Oh, 3 stars. Okay. I said at the beginning of the podcast that if there was any 2 people who could make me feel better about the movie, it was you guys. And you did. I do feel better about the movie than I did yesterday afternoon. Still, it was one of the most boring experiences of my life. And I didn't like it. And I want to be clear. There's no defense here. There's no like Disney defense because I'm a Disney fan. Disney makes a lot of money, and they probably should be helping the communities around them. I'll say that with with conviction, because why not? It would be great if everywhere around Disney was also a nice place to be. But I didn't really like it. It was kind of boring. I would have really liked something interesting to happen. So I'm giving it 2.5 stars.
All right. Well, let's switch gears here into the Letterboxd game and see how that is going to go. All right, everybody. It's time to play the Letterboxd game, where we are going to take a crack at guessing what the Letterboxd community has rated this film on a 0 to 5 scale. We're going to read a handful of reviews, some of the most popular reviews from the movie, before we make that guess. What order are we going in this time, though? David, do you have that information available?
Yes. Well, Garrett is currently in last place with 4. So I believe Garrett goes first.
Okay, great. Well, let's go through some reviews here. First, we've got a 4.5-star review from Amelia. This was the first movie I've seen where Willem Dafoe didn't look like the actual human incarnation of evil. 5 stars. Listen, after this movie, I want to go to Florida more than anything, and I simultaneously, viscerally never want to go there. 5 stars.
Florida sucks, yeah.
It kind of does. Genuine without ever feeling exploitative, joyful without feeling forced, and heartbreaking without feeling manipulative. Hang on. 5 stars. So honest it almost hurts. The film equivalent of finding buried treasure. 3.5. Extra half-star just for Defoe and the birds.
There you go.
And then finally,
Extra half-star.
4.5 stars.
Glad I'm not alone.
This is the first time Willem Dafoe has not looked like the human embodiment of evil. He was truly Willem Defriend.
Oh, well done.
Not
I love
Defoe.
that
Five-star
birds
review.
got a shout.
Defriend.
I love that. That's great. And I love the birds got a shout.
Yeah. Fun reviews. in there.
I stand by Florida sucks. I used to say, I can't say it anymore. I used to say that I've been to Disney 4 times and I've never been to Florida because it feels like a completely different place. I have unfortunately been to regular old Florida now. So
It does, though. When I went for the first time, you're like, whoa, it changes. This is managed by not the government.
yeah, it's like roads are amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lights are amazing. You know, like the public transit within Disney is like, it's like what every city should have.
Right.
Unfortunately.
All right, well, what do you feel, Garrett? You're up first.
Ooh, those were some high reviews. There was high praise from the Letterboxd community, and I do think that this is going to be more of a cinephiled movie. And I think they're going to like it. So I think this is going to be a 4-star movie.
4-star.
Good old 4.0. Josh, you're next.
I'm next. Well, I tend to agree that this is going to be a highly rated movie. I think 4.0 is a very solid guess. I will go. I'm going to go 4.2. I'm going to go over you just a little hair.
Ooh. Oh man, that makes it really tough.
It does, doesn't it? I just
Because I
will
don't know if
not
I
let
wanna-
us do this 3 in a row thing.
I don't know if I want to do under Garrett with 3.9 or if I want to do 4.1 because
you might
yes,
still do it anyway. Got it.
people who love like cinephiles are gonna love this because nothing happens and it doesn't have a story or a plot, so like people are gonna love it. I gotta do it. I'm gonna do it at 4.1. We're gonna be all stacked on top of each other.
4.1. All right. 4.0, 4.1, 4.2. David chose to make this game as boring as he claims the movie was. Let's see. Let's see who's our winner this week. Okay, we have a direct hit this week. So we definitely chose the right area. And it's going to go to David with 4.1. He weaseled out and it paid off, unfortunately, for
It did. We would have had to have a tiebreaker if
I know.
If I hadn't done that.
Yeah,
so
right.
look at me driving in. I won't stop. Here we go. That puts me, because that's a direct hit, at 8. At 8 on the year. Josh in second with 5, and Garrett with 4. Tell you what, I was coming up the rear early. Had a really bad So Many
You're
Sweethearts.
blowing
month.
out the rear is what you're doing.
Yeah, well,
Talking
you know
out the
what?
rear.
I'm about to
Listen, our
bring
game
to
is
this
getting
game.
boring. We're gonna have to
Bring it home.
reevaluate, and my next suggestion is gonna be we write our scores down before the show
Ooh.
because we are influencing each
But
other.
then what
I
happens
like
when
that
if we
idea,
pick the
kind
one
of.
same? What happens?
What happens if it's a tie?
Well, no. If
Well,
we
we
pick
have
the
a
same one?
tiebreaker.
No, what happens
We
if
have
we
a
pick the
tiebreaker.
same one?
Well, we
Like
have a
if-
tiebreaker.
If all three of us write down 4.0 at the beginning of the show, and then we go 4.0, 4.0, 4.0, then we
Well, then we have to do the tiebreaker.
What if
We have
we
a
were
tiebreaker.
to each pick one and a backup? Is that reasonable?
Oh no, but there's a way. Letterbox has different
Okay,
things. We
okay,
can.
we'll
we
think
can
about
find
this.
things.
We'll
we can.
workshop it. There's a
yes,
way.
we can. We can find things.
Okay, well, that was a good meeting to have in front of the audience. Sorry, guys. That's the end of the show, though, so we might as well wrap it up there. We'll be back. We've got more A24 Pro coming up. We got Uncut Gems next to wrap up the month.
To wrap us up.
So stay tuned for that. But that's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the show in your favorite podcast app to keep up with new episodes and reviews. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Facebook to stay in touch and let us know what you think of the show. And finally, you can head to somanysequels.com for all those links and a catalog of all of our past episodes. So we'll see you all next time.